Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Now, today is the first program in 2023, so Happy New Year, everyone. I'm broadcasting around the U.S. and everywhere around the world. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I'm in the studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Welcome, everyone.
And she'll be checking the chat room and the broadcast. Let me put the chat room on now. We can say hello. The chat room is live, so you make your comments. Give me a hi and let me know what you're from. If you have questions or comments, put them on the chat room, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Now, today I'm going to do a simple painting. It's called Fruits for Lunch. Now, when I started painting over 30 years ago, I used to sketch a lot. And one of the first things I sketched was an apple. I used to take my lunch to my workspace, and I'd open the lunch, and I would sketch whatever was in lunch. So I'd have apples or whatever, and I would sketch it. And that made me improve some of my art. And I think as an artist, sketching is very important. But today we're going to do a simple painting, and I think it'll be interesting. Let me go to my painting table, and let me get started. Zip over. Okay, I've got, let's go over some of my material. Let's go over some of my material I'll be using here. We'll get that out of the way first. All the paints I'm using, right off the bat, Alizarin Crimson. Nice, brilliant red. Yellow orange. Yellow lemon, and I'm going to do a combination of green number 2 and ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, peacock blue and opera, cerulean blue, and it'll be a gray mixture, which we'll do that on the palette. I'll show you how I do that. These are Holbein artist watercolors, and I'll be using Holbein watercolor brushes today, and the paper will be Gemini watercolor 140-pound cold press paper. Now, all these items here that I'm showing is on my website, everettswatercolors.com. And this is also a good paint-along. The paint-along is on my website. I'll be providing a link here in the video also how to get to my Everett's Watercolors art group, which is on Facebook. And that art group is allow you to go in there and put in a sample of what you're doing, and also may give an opportunity for me to look at it, make a comment on it. I'd love that for you to share your art opportunities with me. So if you do anything on off my website, go ahead and sign into the Everett's Watercolors art group and show me your examples. Now, the photograph and the drawing I show you today will be on my website. And the way you get to that, you go to everettswatercolors.com, and you go to the Live Classroom 2023. There's a link up there in the navigation bar on the left, and you go to that page, and then on the left column of that page, you'll find a link to the Fun Watercolors, which will give you a copy of the photograph and the drawing. And there's also a link there to the Everett's Watercolor art group in Facebook. So I've already downloaded it. This is already on the website. Now let me go over a couple of things here. I did a still life, and what I did was I picked these were artificial items, artificial fruit that I used here. But I brought in some real fruit today. I've got these at the grocery store this morning. That's a beautiful, delicious apple, and this is also an orange, of course. They're beautiful. I just love this. I just love fruit. And then, of course, the banana. Okay, so I brought the actual live objects here in the art room. But this is what I did. I set up the still life. Now, when you set up a still life, number one, try to keep it simple, but you have to have it related. So what I did was I set it up on a plain gray background as a background. And then I took my light source, and I located it in a position that would give me a nice shadow pattern. And I think here the shadow pattern you see is off here to the right. And I used my cell phone as really a viewfinder to give me the proper aspect and the angle I wanted to shoot. So this is a photograph of what I had laid out. This is called this will be the reference photograph for the painting today. Okay. Then I took the photograph and I drew the design. I drew the design on my sketchbook from the photograph. And you can see here, I put the apple in up here and the orange and the banana. And you can see, I'm going to give you a close up here. You might see with that, see the shapes and everything. Okay, so the drawing and the photograph are on my website, which I described before. And then you can go on, and if you're going to do a paint along, then you can submit that and put it on Everett's Watercolors art group in Facebook. Okay. So that's the drawing I did from this photograph, and this is the photograph we'll be using as a reference. That's the photograph reference I'm using today. I brought the real fruit along as inspiration. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is, after I've got the drawing down, I'm going to do the background first. I've decided to do the background first, and then I'll put the fruit objects here. So forth. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use a little piece of tape here, and I'm going to create an interesting background. And the line I draw across there, if you look at the photograph, that's really my horizon line. And really, as you see here, any line, this is the back of the table and then the wall. So that horizon is any horizontal level, this eye level, and this is an artificial horizon line, but it's the one I chose for the photograph. Okay, so from this, I'm going to paint the background vertical here, the vertical space, and I'm going to start because I have an apple here, which is red. I'm going to use the complementary color next to it. Now, with complementary colors, if I'm using red, the complementary color is green. Okay, so we're going to learn a little about, besides the painting, the objects, we're going to learn a little bit about the color combinations and maybe some good colors to put next to each other. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of light yellow-green. This here I've already got started with. I got green number 1 and mix a little bit of yellow lemon in with that. And I'll get a nice green, a light green. Yeah, that's a nice light color. And I'll make sure I have enough of it because I'm going to go in behind. Just a little more, a touch more yellow. Okay, that should be plenty. Set aside. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to paint in the background here. Now I want to shift my board around, so I'm right-handed, so I want to shift it around so I can get in a good spot here. So I'm shifting a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting in the background. So this green background is a good combination next to that red apple. That's why I chose this color for this part of the background. Now, as I come up next to the my drawing, I've got an apple here, apple shape. I'm going to paint around that, of course. So I paint around the object, which I have drawn in, and then I continue on with the background. So a very simple way of putting a background in is to pick a nice color. I use the complementary color to the red apple. Okay, now before I leave that, now what I do is I pull off on the outside border. I make sure I get the extra moisture from seeping into the edge of the painting. Pick up the extra moisture. Okay. All right, so that's step 1. I got that part of the background there. I get the background behind the apple done. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is take this off. Now I might just save that tape and put it back on because I'm going to do the rest of the background. So let me put the dryer on now. I'm going to dry the painting. So I mixed up a little bit of green number 1 and lemon yellow to give me a nice yellow green. And that's a nice contrasting color to this red apple. When you get there, I think you'll see the difference. I'm going to check the background, make sure it's dry. A little bit more. If it feels cool, it's still a little bit damp. Make sure it's nice and dry. That should do it. Okay. All right, now I'm going to put the tape back on. Now I'm going to turn the painting around. I could use the same piece of tape here. And I'm going to tape the this portion here. Protect the green. Okay. All right. So now I've got the green portion, and now I'm going to paint in the background now. Remember, the background is sort of and I think I'll use the gray. I think the painting here, the picture shows I use the gray as a background, and so I'm going to use a gray mixture. Now, a gray, but there's all kinds of grays, and I think what I'm going to do is the gray, because of the yellow banana and the orange, their complementary color is in a purple. Purple. See the yellow. Yellow, the opposite is violet, and orange, the opposite is blue. So I'm going to have a gray, but I'm going to have a gray, mix it to the blue side. Have a little more blue in it for the blue, a little blue tint in the background. So those are the sort of decisions I make as I go along. What color am I going to use here? So now what I've done now, off here to the side, I've got a little section here in my palette that I can mix up a gray. And so this is like a well that I have over here in a palette, and I can mix up a mixture over here. And I'm going to test the color out. And that's a little bit black. So I'm going to put a little bit of ultramarine blue. A little bit of ultramarine. I'm going to lean this gray toward the blue side. A little blue tint in it, a little bit more, not too much. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit of blue to the mixture over here, my background mixture. Okay, all right, I like that. Okay, I like that. So you can see it changed from a black, gray to a cooler gray, which is got a little more blue in it. Okay, so that's what I did by mixing that color. All right, so now I'm going to go in. Now I'm using, in this case, the first brush I used for the background, I used the number 16 round Holbein brush. That's synthetic. But for this one, I'm going to use the. I might change my mind there. I like the round brush. So let's just. I use the flat brush to mix it up, but let's just hold off on that. Let's go back to the. I'll wipe out the brush every time I change color. I wash out the brush. So I go to my bucket, clean out the brush, and come to the towel and wipe it off. Make sure it's clean. Okay, now I'll go into my my blue gray mixture. Now I'm going to go in and do the background. A bit of water here splashing on. So now I'm going to go in now and paint in the background color. And there's a shadow under this, but this the background color can go right through that. This is the bottom edge of the banana. Yeah, I've also got the painting cropped off. This is I'm painting on a quarter sheet piece of paper, but I'm not going to paint the whole quarter sheet. So I've also cropped off the painting shape or painting size by putting some tape around it. So now I'm just very carefully going painting around the object, getting the background in. So using this round brush, going through very quickly. So we're putting this tape down. I'm protecting the painted area and also painting out to the edge. Now here I go around the edge of that apple up here with this gray. And I'll come down here and that's the edge with a connection. It's interesting, a still life, you could use the same objects and just change the position and you have another painting. I mean, it's just a lot of variables there you can play with a still life. Now I'm going to turn the paper a little bit so I can get this side over here. So very quickly, I'm filling in the background. I thought I was going to do something different today, and as far as starting, so I thought starting with the background first, because that's one of the bigger areas, and it's all the same color, so it'd be easy to make a mixture and then just paint it in. And then the color choices were based on what I wanted to show in the final product. So I'm painting a gray. The gray color in the picture I like that because that's what I chose as my background color. But then I wanted to lean it towards a blue, which would be complementary with the objects. So those are the decisions that I make as I'm doing the painting or as I'm planning the painting out. Color mixes. What kind of brushes am I going to use? How dark do I want? How dark do I want the mix? So it doesn't matter. There's going to be a little variation in the color. It's just a background, so it can be light and darks. It doesn't matter. The only place you be careful is when you go around the objects. Don't want to paint over those yet. So we leave those white for right now. I'm just painting in the background and painting over top of the shadow patterns also. We'll paint those in after I get the background done. Okay. So now we're coming down to the last part here around this orange. This orange on the left side over here. I turn the board a little bit. So I'm turning the board so I can get I'm right-handed, so I'm moving a right-handed stroke here. So I'm turning the board so it makes it more convenient to do the brush stroke. And this big old round brush, this old number 16 round does a great job. This is really a very versatile brush. Holds a lot of paint. Comes to a nice sharp point. So I can do a lot of detail with it. And I can also move out a lot of paint with it. All right. Get that corner down there. Okay, now I'm going to make sure I wipe off the corners or the edges. Get that extra paint off there. Sometimes if your edges are wet, it'll seep into the painting and it will create a blossom. So I'm preventing that now by wiping up the excess moisture. I'm wiping up the excess edges. More. Keep the edges nice and clean. There. Okay. All right. Now I can take this top off and we'll dry this. There was a little bit of bleeding over there on the edge. So what I can do there So I take a towel, I take a tissue. Let's see if we can clean that up a little bit. It's not going to be that important, but just to show you what I do, and I can go back and repaint that, but go in here and take the tissue, pick that up, and it's going to pick up most of it. This is background, and over here, what happens if you're not careful and don't seal that tape, then the watercolor is going to seep underneath, and that's what happened. Okay, but I've got just about most of it now, so it's going to be just a little, maybe a touch here and there, and that can be cleaned up later, but most of it's going to be gone here since I picked this up over here. So I'm just taking a tissue and going along the edge, and I'm picking up that wet pigment that seeped underneath the tape. Okay. All right. Not too bad. That can be a little fuzzy back there right now. We're not going to worry about that. Okay. Let me dry this. Okay. Let me turn the dryer on. Okay. So we painted the background here on this tabletop, which is bluish gray. And I used the big number 16 round brush. And I use tape up there to save the edge. And that's something we've got to be a little bit cautious about. Make sure it's sealed properly. Check it with the back of my hand. Make sure it's nice and dry. If the surface feels cool, it's still a little bit damp. Okay. What I'm going to do? I'm going to pull something else here. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to paint the shadow pattern in. So I'm going to leave the fruit alone till the end. Now I'm going to mix up another batch over here. I'm going to fix a shadow. I'm going to mix another combination of blue, a little bit of a little Alizarin crimson, maybe a touch of yellow. So if you mix the three primaries together, that's going to give you a gray or a dark value. So I'm mixing those three. Now that's a little bit of a brownish one. So if I have brown, I can darken it up and make it a grayer by adding a little more blue, which is ultramarine. So you have to experiment a little bit with your paints and your mixtures, depending on what you need. Let's see, I'm gonna make a little more blue in there. It's getting nice and dark. Now, this red apple over here, it's going to be a red apple. So I'm going to make the shadow from the red apple. I'm going to put a little bit more red in it. So I'm going to tone that to a red. Just a tint of red in it. I'll put a little bit of Alizarin crimson into the mix. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint the shadow in. So I'm going to go ahead and just the shadow pattern from the light along the edge of the apple. Now I'm using the half-inch flat brush from Holbein. It's a synthetic brush, but I really like this brush. It comes to a nice sharp edge, and I can do a lot of detail with it. You'll notice here I'm I'm going around there. I'm making a circular corner with it. Make a nice smooth edge. It fills in the paint real quickly. And up here next to the apple, I can use the corner of the brush and go in there and do a nice touch. Do a nice flat stroke. Okay. All right. That's one shadow down. Now, okay, we're going to do the, this is the orange. And the orange, the complement of the orange, we're going to put a little bit of blue in there. A little more blue, just a slice more blue. And maybe just a hint of the orange color. So if you keep mixing up these colors, you're going to get a dark color. It doesn't really matter what you come up with, except it's going to be a dark color. So I'm putting a little bit of shades of everything in here. A little bit more orange. Okay. All right. Now this color is going to be the shadow. Okay. So I've done the shadow of the apple. Now I'm going to move the shadow of the orange, which is back here. So we'll go in here and do the shadow of the orange. So I'm going to do the back. I'm really kind of moving back to forward. I'm going background. Now I'm putting the shadows in. So I'm getting all the dark values in. That's basically it. Getting all the dark values. And then we'll go in and put in the color. And the things will start, the painting will start popping. The colors will start coming alive. We get all this background out of the way. And the shadows. So I know what, see, by looking at the photograph, I know what colors I need. And I know how dark I want them. I didn't have to do a value study today. I usually do a value study also, but I went by my photograph as far as the values. And so I knew that I was going to have a dark shadows in here, because that's how I set up the still life. I wanted a nice dark shadow. So I used a very, well, it's a high beam. I used an LED lamp with, and not intense, but a nice bright light source to get a nice dark shadow. Okay, now the only other shot of that is from the banana, and from the yellow, I'm going to use a little bit of violet, a little more violet. Okay, so I'll put a little more red in that mix with that blue. Okay, now I got a little bit more violet color down here just for a shadow. Blue. I still check the color. It's going to be a dark color anyway, but it's going to have a little bit more complementary mix to it. I'll put a little bit of yellow in there also, because it's a banana. I'm going to have a little bit of shadow from the color itself. Okay. So now I'm going to put the shadow pattern in here now of the banana. So it's another dark color. It's a mixture. I used a lot of blues in there, but I also added a little bit of violet, which is the opposite to which is complementary to yellow, violet. And then I even put a little bit of yellow in here, just a mix. It's just a speck. I'm using a half inch flat brush. You see how nice and smooth I can get that edge. Really, this brush is really not a versatile brush. All the Holbein brushes that I use are very professional. These are synthetic, but they're very professional brushes. And they're on my website, and I use them all the time. These are my favorite ones I use. I have other brushes on my website. I use those for other paintings. But this painting here, thought I'd give it a nice try. Nice smooth background and a nice smooth shadow. Now I'm going right in here and putting a little touch on the edges. Using the corner of the brush. See, the corner of the brush, or flat brushes, you can use it almost like a round brush, the point of a round brush. That's the versatility of a flat brush. And I use a round brush like a flat brush. So, I mean, there's once you get used to playing with the brushes, they're so versatile, and just get used to using them. Now, there's another shadow here on this banana, which is interesting. This one comes out this way. So when I set this still life up and I put the light on it, I really, you have to play with the light, and you have to play with the positioning and everything. And that's part of the design area of setting up a still life, is you set up what you really want to see. And I wanted to see a nice shadow pattern. So you play around with the shapes, you play around with the sizes, you play around with the angles, and play around with the lighting until you get something that's pleasing or interesting. And I thought this shadow pattern here really set this subject matter off. Fruits for lunch. It brought back a lot of memories when I started painting over 30 years ago. I used to draw my lunch. During my lunchtime, I would, whatever I had in front of me, I'd draw, I'd sketch. And I think that's a good idea for anyone, is to sketch every day, something simple. Doesn't have to be complicated. Just pull out that drawing pad or sketch pad and just start drawing whatever is in front of you. And then you'll get better. Okay. All right, so that completes the shadow pattern. There's a little shadow pattern over here, and I'll get that one. I'll load up the brush again. There's a little shadow underneath the orange and next to the banana right here, just a little touch. Not very much, just a little bit. But I like that because it's just another little piece there that gives a little more realism. Okay, kind of defines those edges. Okay, so I got the shadow patterns for the orange. I got the banana. Okay, so those are the shadow patterns on the background. Okay, then we're going to have some fun. We're going to start painting in the objects. Yeah, I think I'm going to put the flat brush aside for right now. Go back to the round brush. So the first thing I'm going to paint is the apple. And I'm going to start with, I've decided, the real actual fruit itself, look how rich and red it is. I mean, that's a red delicious, but look at the color. See, nice deep red. And of course, the picture I have is deep red also. So I'm going to go ahead and use that color. So that was my color choice. And wash out the print, or wash out my brush. The last time I used this brush was in the gray, so make sure it's got some gray out of here. Clean out the brush. And I'm going to mix up alizarin crimson. Alizarin crimson, there it is, beautiful red. Look at that, I love it. But you don't use this in all paints because it's a very strong color. But we're going to use it in this one. All right, now I'm going to use this number 16 round, loaded. And we're going to go in here and put it in. Now I can paint up to the edge, and as a matter of fact, if there's anything there behind, I just cover it up now with this paint. This paint's going to be much stronger now. It'll cover up that light gray, and it'll match with the dark gray I have here at the bottom. Okay, so a nice combination. And of course, remember I said before, I chose a green up here as a contrast, complementary color next to the red. You get another I would say, impact on the colors. When you put the complementary colors together, they become much stronger. the reds become redder and the green becomes greener, and that's what the contrast colors do. Now there's a little highlight on this one, so I'm going to leave a little bit of white paper showing. Not going to cover that up yet. So we'll leave a little bit of white there as a highlight. There's a highlight on the apple. And I think if you looked at most pictures of apples, you'll see a little highlight because there's a shiny spot where the light hits it. And you always look for those things. And the core up here is a little bit lighter also. So I'm going to go paint around that right now. Now I'm going to turn the painting so I get I'm right-handed, so I'll turn the painting so I can get a better angle. So right-handed, I'll go this way. If you're left-handed, I guess you'd go the opposite way. So, but go whichever way is comfortable for you. Follow the curve, follow the shape, and you let the paint and the brush do its job. Now, with the right kind of brush and the brush stroke, it's very simple to do. I'll be very careful on the edges. The edges of an object are the most important thing in a painting. The edges define the object itself. So you want those to be good, especially the ones that show. And the apple, up here in the top, the apple shows up prominently. Okay, then we come on down here. See how nice and bright red. Now, watercolor dries about 30 to 40% lighter. So this may look dark now, but when it dries, it'll be a little bit lighter color. But right now, it's nice and dark. Okay, we're going to get this in, and then we're going to let this dry, and we'll get on to the next one. So I'm already thinking ahead. The next one I'm going to work on is the orange. I'll leave the banana for last. Okay. Just being real careful on the edge because I got the banana here also. I've got two edges. Okay. Now we'll let that dry. And I'm not going to blow dry. Just let it dry naturally. We'll have plenty of time to come back. If it's still a little bit wet, I can still put the dryer on. But right now, I want to get to the next object, which is the orange. And a little water splatter here on my paintbrush. Off my paintbrush. Okay, I'm changing colors, so I go into my rinse bucket and rinse out the brush. And I'll squeeze it out on a towel. Make sure it's clean. Okay, and now yellow orange. I don't have to get too fancy with this. Yellow orange is in my palette. I'm not going to worry about mixing it. Yeah, I'm using colors right out of the palette today. I'm not going to. I wasn't other than the gray and the yellow green. I mixed those a little bit with different colors, but primarily I'm using the pure pigments right out of the palette. So this is yellow orange. And load that up. Okay, then I'll go in here and put that in. Ooh, isn't that pretty? Oh, look at that orange. Beautiful color. So this is the color of the orange. So coming on down here, using this large 16 round brush. Okay. So I've used the flat brush for round objects. You can also use the round brush. It doesn't make any difference. They both work, whichever you're more comfortable with. This round brush holds a lot of paint, so I want to be able to cover a lot of territory in one brush stroke. I don't want to have to keep going back and reloading the brush too many times. So this yellow orange now is going to fill in the space here I want. I'll go back and make sure the edges are clean in a minute. Okay, now only next to the shadow is okay. And then Again, here's another intersection. Be careful. I'm going to be go careful around the banana. And I set this still life up so that the fruit items overlapped each other. I had the banana overlap the apple and the orange. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do a still life, a setup, but I think the best way is to show depth. To show depth in a painting is to have an overlap of objects. That way you show one is in front of the other, and automatically that is a good indication of depth. We could do it by value, we can do it by color, but the overlapping an object is the best way to show one in front of the other. And here we see the banana overlapping both of those, so that means that they're behind. End of story. Okay, now I'm just going ahead, I'm just checking the edges, make sure they're clean, making sure they're perfect. Well, it's not, you don't have to be as perfect as you need. I mean, you can have a little bit of artistic license and make it as fast or take your time and do it as slow as you want. What I'm doing is covering, make sure there's no little white spots showing. Okay. Now, while that's still a little bit damp, there's a little thinner here in the orange, a little green spot, and look here's a real orange. See the green? There's a little green stem there of the where the stem connects to the orange. So what I do, I'll pick up a little bit of green number 1, and I'll put that green in here. And the orange is still wet. That's okay. I'm going to let them kind of run together a little bit. And also, if you'll notice, on the orange in the photograph, there's a little highlight over here. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of white while I'm here. And I'm just going to dab a little bit. The paint's still a little bit damp. That's okay. I'm going to put just a little bit of light up here, just to have a little highlight on the orange. Okay. I've got a highlight on the apple. Now I have a highlight on the orange. Okay, good. All right. All right. Now I've got 2 edges here that I'm not sure are completely dry. So I'm going to blow dry those before I do the banana. Yeah, let's use the blow dryer. Okay. It didn't take too long. Just make sure the edge here and here is dry because I'm going over that with another paint for the banana. I'm going to mix up a little bit of yellow, lemon, maybe add a little bit of yellow deep in with it just to give it a deeper yellow color. So I'll do a little combination of a couple yellows I have here on my palette. So I'm rinsing out the brush, making sure it's clean, and I'm wiping off in a towel. Make sure it's dry also. Pick up clean water. Then I'll come down here and I'm going to mix up a little bit of that yarn. I'm going to use a little bit of the yellow lemon. I'll mix it in with a little bit of yellow deep. So it makes a nice yellow orange. Actually, it's yellow. It's not yellow orange. Yellow orange is for the orange. This is yellow. This is called yellow deep. Put a little more lemon yellow in that. Lemon. So yellow lemon is the major color I'm using. But I mixed a little bit of yellow deep in with that. Okay. Just to give a little bit of variety, I think. Now this one here is nice big broad strokes. I'm using the large number 16 round. I'll come around. I'll clean up the edges. Just getting the body started. Pick up another load of paint. You'll notice that red apple, because it's dried, that red had lightened up. Didn't lighten up a lot, but the color is lighter than it was when I finished painting it. Okay, now I'm going to go and be very careful. I'm going to get the edges now. Across the shadow. And because this is a lighter color, really it doesn't, you can't really go wrong when you hit the other. If you hit a darker color, the yellow just mixes right in with it. Okay, come around here. I'll turn the paint a little bit so I can get the angle. Being right-handed, you have to move around so you can get a nice angle for the brush stroke. Keep things moving. We'll come back this way. I think I'll turn it around so I like to always have a good, my motion is usually right-handed, so I like to turn the angle so I have more control over the brush stroke. And that way you don't miss the angle, or you don't miss the corners or whatever. Okay. All right. I got the banana done. Now I'm going to do some. We'll do some more shadowing on that. But let me dry that one off just a little bit. Okay. Now the last step is the. If you look at the photograph, each one of the items has got a form shadow. There's a darker shadow here. There's a shadow on the orange, and there's a shadow here on the banana. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to mix a shadow color. And if you'll recall, what we talked about was that the shadow color, the best shadow color is to use the complementary color for the shadow. For example, on the red, we're going to use green as a shadow pattern on the apple. On the orange, we're going to use blue. And on the yellow, we're going to use violet. Okay, those are the opposite colors of on the color wheel. Yellow, we're going to use violet. Red, we're going to use green, and orange, we're going to use blue. Okay, so we're using complementary colors to mix the shadow form on the objects. So for the first one here, we're going to mix up a little bit of shadow here. I'm going to use the flat brush for this. And what I'm going to do now is clean off my palette just a little, give me a little room. I'll clean off some of the color. Pick up some tissue. I need a little space here. Okay, so the first color I want is a little bit of green. So I'm going to use green number 2, which is a darker green. It's like a middle green. Okay, I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to go in now. I'm going to go in. Before I do that, I'm going to put some color up in here. This core, I'm going to mix that little bit of that orange, red in that. And I'm going to put that, I'm going to start painting this little bit of core area. I'm going to leave part of it white. We'll blend that in a few minutes. Let that dry a little bit. Okay. All right. So going back to the green, I'm going to put the green in there, and I'm going to put the green in the shadow. So now that green is layering, is going to be a layering over top of that red, and it's going to give it a shadow pattern. You can see that in the complementary color green painted over the red is going to give the shadow and form of the shape. Come down here to the edge of the banana. Make sure I got the edges. Okay, now I'm going to rinse out the brush a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is just a damp brush. There's no paint in it, just damp. And I'm going to go along. Now I'm going to smooth out that edge. Just by, and I think I'll take a little more of the paint. What I'll do is take the Alizarin Crimson, and I'm going to go back in and put that along that same edge. That way the paint's going to mix. Paint's going to mix with that. And we got a nice shadow on that one there. And I'm going to put that same color in the core. And I think I'll just dab it with a towel. A little bit of tissue on that. I'll take a little bit of red, a little bit of the Alizarin Crimson, and just kind of go across this white area. I don't want it to be, it's going to be a highlight, but I don't want it to be pure white. Okay. Let that dry. All right, now for the orange, I'm going to mix up a little bit of blue. So I'll use, I think what I'll use on that one, it's going to be Cobalt blue. It's in my palette, and I can use it. Cerulean blue, I got cerulean blue too. Cerulean blue it's got a little bit of green in it, and I don't want to put green in next to that orange. So I'm going to use Cobalt blue is a pure blue color. I don't want too much on it, just a little bit. So now we're going here with the orange, and we'll put the shadow on this. So I'm putting the form shadow on this particular object. So I'm painting the complementary color, in this case blue, against the orange. And that will be the shadow pattern. So a lot of students have problems with shadow. What's the color of shadows? And that, I think that's one thing, the one lesson to remember, or try to remember, is that if you use the complement, you'll get a much better results using a complementary color for your shadow, the shadow of the object. Because if you have a lot of sunlight or have a lot of light, then you're going to have a lot of shadow. I'm going to take that yellow, I'm going to put that orange now and go in and blend in with that edge. So I'm putting some more orange paint on my brush, and I'm blending out that edge I just put there. You'll see the blending come out. I'm blending now. Blending that rough edge I just did, and it smooths that out. Okay, so now I have a form shadow on the orange. Okay, now the last one I'm going to work on is the apple. Excuse me, the banana. So the yellow, I'm going to use violet. Now for that one, think about that one for quite a while, and I need a nice medium violet. I don't want a strong violet. The reds and the blues are way you make violet, but I'm going to come up with a combination here. I'm going to use Opera, which is a nice light red. So you're getting a little bit of lesson on color mixing today, but it's important that you play with your palette and know what your colors can do. Take a little bit of Opera, which is a light red. Can you imagine the red on top of that yellow? But I'm going to mix that with a little bit of Peacock blue. And that's going to give you a nice, soft violet. And that soft violet matches a soft yellow. That's the point I'm trying to make. You want to make the value of your complementary color the same value that your object is in. So this light yellow, I'm using a light violet, which I made with, we come along here now, I'm going to paint that right in. So this is the shadow side. This is the shadow side of the banana. It's the form. And so it's a complementary color because it's violet against the yellow. But it's you have to find out which violet you need. And the value that I'm using is what I call a value that matches the yellow. So you need a value that's the same as the object you're trying to show a shadow on. There'll be a little shadow up here. And there's a little shadow down here. Base. Okay. I think that's about it. Okay. So what I've done there is I've matched the shadow pattern on the apple, the shadow pattern on the orange, and the shadow pattern on the. Now you can always add darker values to that, but that's a starting point at this point. Every art that you do, you want to work on it and let it sit for a while. You don't want to actually finish it off exactly everything in detail. You get it to a point where okay, I can back off now, come back later and work on it, or do it again. There's lots of colors I can stick in here. A little bit of edge over here. These are just cleanups. I can go ahead and wipe that out with a Q-tip. I can wipe this down a little bit. This little edge here, it got a little bit red on that one. Boom. Okay, I wonder if let me try just one more layer. I'm going to take that same violet. I'm going to go in and add another layer on there. Just another layer. Make it just a little bit darker. That's a nice strong shadow on that banana. Go do that. Okay. So you can always go back in and add another layer on top of what you did, okay, to make it a little bit stronger. Now the last touch I have is on that apple, and that's going to be what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in a little bit of burnt sienna here on the stem. What I think I can do now is just kind of marry this others. Okay. All right, let's put a frame around that and take a look at it. I'll bring this over here. Got too many frames here. Let's use the one. Back here. Okay. There's the finished product. Fruits for lunch. And I did an earlier one. This is the one I did today in a demonstration. I did an earlier one. Let me show you that one. And that was my first try. Okay. So I think they both turned out well for the fruits. And I think they both look good from the example of the photograph. And compared to the real fruit, I think we have a nice painting here that symbolizes fruit for lunch. It takes back a lot of memories and a nice painting. I would like to go along and recommend that you do this as a paint along and submit it to my Facebook page. The links are it will be in the video below. Let me go back to my main page.
Everett Vitale says, very nice.
Oh, Tyler, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Excuse me. I just thank you for your comment. A still life is something that is another interesting painting. We do landscapes, we do portraits, we do still lifes, and there's abstracts. There's all kinds of things to paint, and it all begins with what are you interested in, and also what really do you want to paint that makes you feel good. So today was a good example of painting something that I have a good feeling about. I like apples and oranges and bananas, and it brought back a lot of memories of when I started painting. And I thought it would be a good way to start the year off with an example of how to do a still life. So I hope you all have a good day today and have a happy new year again. And I'll see you again next week on Thursday at 2 o'clock
Eastern
Standard Time.